Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. I thought I would mix in a Aliens of the Week here while I was wrapping up the Urban Legend past suggestion videos. So be on the lookout for my final video for this go around pretty soon. This particular Alien of the Week, I was actually looking at it through the Cryptids website. It was interesting that I found that it was previously suggested by others here on this channel, and looking at it, I just decided to just save it for another day. But in this case, I wanted to go ahead and talk about it here because it does have a lot of interesting information with it. I find it interesting that it's under the cryptid section when it definitely seems more, especially after you hear all this info, more along the lines of an aliens and UFO video. So that's why I'm incorporating it here. It's a one-of-a-kind deal. Just pretty much only happened once, if you are to believe this story here in the United States. So even though it happened once and it was a couple decades back, it still has a lasting hallmark of sorts. Lots of great information, very, very unique stuff. It has to do with an encounter with these aliens that have become known as the Tuscumbia Space Penguins, which you're looking at a drawing of here. So immediately it has a memorable name. It has an instant iconic look to it, because this is nothing like, say, along the lines of the classic grays or the classic aliens that we've seen in movies and in other type of formats. No, in this case, this has its own unique feature. So instantly, that's what attracted me to it. So what were the Tuscumbia Space Penguins? Well, again, they were a one-of-a-kind encounter by a farmer back on the winter of 1967. In actuality, it was February 14th. 1967, there, I believe, yes, in Tuscumbia, Missouri, hence the name, the Tuscumbia Space Penguins. The farmer in question was a guy who was 64 years old at the time, by the name of Claude Edwards. Now, reading the information on him, it was interesting to note that he's very similar to some of the other people I've talked about in some of my past videos, where they've encountered very, very strange circumstances, but they decided to be very humble about it. In other words, they're not going to brag about it. They're not going to try to profit from their experience. They're not going to try to talk to any ear about it. No, instead, they just keep it to themselves. They try to keep it low key as much as they can, and only through happen chance, either some family members pass along the story or they themselves pass it along, I guess, towards the end of their life. That's when they share it. So such was the case with this guy, Claude Edwards. Reading the information about him, it made it seem like he was someone who was just a simple man living on a farm, just going about his business, just doing what he normally does, completely non-publicity seeking, nothing along those lines, just salt of the earth type stuff. Well, on this particular day, there he was mending on his farm, when he noticed that his cattle were actually all facing towards the east, like they were gazing at something towards the east side, intrigued by whatever they saw. He apparently had not noticed what it was just yet, but when he saw them staring at something, that's when he turned, and that's when he saw this. He described it as a massive grayish green mushroom-like object, and the way it was standing upwards, it was like it was being held almost like a table. It had four legs or some kind of legs underneath it, perching it up. So interesting, because sometimes in most stories about UFOs, you hear that they're just floating above the ground, let's say silently, but in this case, they had legs perched atop it. That would be important later on too, in a few minutes, as far as the evidence tied to that. So once he saw this, he decided to go check it out. He wanted to see what it was. According to him, the reason he did any of this, including coming up very close to it and even trying to throw rocks at it, was because he wanted to see, like, not have it escape, I guess. It was on his land. He wanted to make sure that things were safe, I guess, in other words. As he approached this thing, whatever it was, that's when he noticed another thing. He noticed that there was these diminutive creatures underneath that UFO, like whatever it was, whatever it was perched on. He noticed that they were underneath it. The way they described them was miniature monsters about 3 feet in height. They had some kind of grayish green complexion, which actually, according to him, matched the color of the ship. So if it gives you an idea essentially of how similar they were. And then also they seem to have no neck. So he described them, in fact, as their bodies as looking some kind of penguins. Their eyes, by the way, he didn't know if they were a large, wide set of black eyes or if they were wearing some kind of goggles. But in either case, he drew a picture of them, and also they had something on top of their body, like there was some kind of protective gear or maybe some kind of apparatus on top of it. So it looked like they were essentially wearing some kind of suit almost of some sort. So also what was very interesting is that their hands, the way he would describe them, was pretty hard to see, these appendages, because they were moving very, very swiftly. So we couldn't quite tell if they were hands or if they were some other thing. But they were constantly in motion. Like these things were not sitting down, just just resting. No, instead they were completely restless. Like they were, according to him, moving back and forth very, very quickly underneath that UFO. The UFO itself was described as being kind of large. Again, it had the large dome shape. It had the green color to it. It also had, the way he described it, a metallic surface that looked like it was, according to him, shiny silk. And then the top part of the UFO was about 18 feet in diameter. So that curved portion of it. Now, as far as his own encounter, he went up straight to it. But the way he described it was close to about maybe, I think it was a couple of feet, like 70 feet or so away from it. That's when, 15 feet away from it, that's when he was stopped by some invisible thing. The way he described it was almost like there was a protective force field around the actual UFO and around them, whatever these things were. And so he was stopped. He couldn't move forward. The way he described it was there was this pressure from some invisible barrier that was unmistakable. So he said, I thought I was going right up to it. I got up there and there it was. I just walked up against a wall. So undeterred though, he decided he wanted to at least still do something, trying to protect either his farm, make sure things were safe. He picked up a nearest rock and then chucked it right at this invisible force field. And of course, it immediately just bounced off. Interestingly enough, these Tuscumbia Space Penguins have not noticed him yet. It was when he did the second time, he grabbed another rock. This time he hurled it higher, and it seemed to actually bounce off of the force field near the top and then towards the back, like essentially rolled behind the UFO. That's when these things noticed him. And instead of being aggressive and instead of coming straight towards him, the way he described it was these things immediately just scuttled, like they quickly just disappeared right underneath the craft. By the way, he said it was pretty hard to see underneath the craft because there was these large lights that were emitting from it. So it seemed like something was open on the bottom, but the lights were so bright that you couldn't actually see underneath it. In any case, these things, whatever they were, they ran right into the UFO again underneath that access portal, and then that was it. The UFO lurched once, twice, and then it just quickly shot up, and then it moved straight northeast. The way he described it, I mean, it moved at an impossible speed. And this encounter, according to him, took at most about maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the very, very most, and then that was it. Like at that point, they were gone, and he was never to see them ever again. So again, he himself, being a humble man, he never shared any of this information with anyone else. He was finally pried open into sharing some of it. I think it was with one of his family members, and in fact the family member only he only shared it with him because he was promised that he himself, that his identity would remain completely anonymous, at least until the day he died. That promise was kept, but it goes to show you again the extremities that he took about sharing this information and trying to gain publicity from it. But that's all the information. Tuscumbia Space Penguins, a brief 5-10 minute encounter with this farmer Edwards, but still pretty much a landmark encounter considering what had occurred and the very unique circumstances around it. By the way, that family member that he shared it with, they came back, I think it was his brother actually, and he took pictures of the surrounding area where it was described that this thing landed, and one of those shows this, which is a hole that was created by one of those landing posts, I guess, from the UFO. So that's the, I guess, the closest thing we have as proof associated with this UFO being there. The only other thing is, according to the brother, he stated that the soil underneath that thing, the UFO, when it was there, seemed slightly irregular. Like there was a slightly irregular circle around it, and then also it was more dehydrated than the rest of the soil. Not much evidence on that part, but still, it's some difference that he mentioned as far as the rest of the lands. But in any case, if anyone has any more information about the Tuscumbia Space Penguins, these unique, almost cute little aliens that landed there that one day in Missouri, that'd be really great to hear. One of a kind encounter. So maybe if they've landed elsewhere, if anyone has any more information about those locations, that would be great to hear too. So, right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.